Thank you for tuning into TTV. I'm your host, Toya, and today is Saturday. And what a beautiful day it is. So, the question I have for you guys today, the question of this week is, when was the last time you talked to one of your elders in your family, your neighborhood, just an elder period, okay? When was the last time you talked to them? There are some things that I want to go over with that, but before I do, please like, subscribe, and share and hit that notification bell because that actually supports the channel. And if you get something out of the content I provide, chances are someone else will as well. So share it with those that you know, love, and care about. Also, I am a distributor for Young Living. They are an essential oil company, one of the best in the business. The link is below in the description, so check them out. You can learn more about essential oils and see what it is that they have to offer. But check it out below because, again, that also supports me. They do not sponsor me, but I am a distributor for them. So let's get into it. So why am I telling you to spend time with your elders? Well, there's a couple of benefits that you get out of it as well as they get out of it. Okay, so let's get into it. The first thing that most people think about when you go where somebody tells you talk to your elders is the vast amount of history that you can get firsthand knowledge on. So it's one thing to read something in a book. It's a whole nother thing when somebody actually sits back and tells you what they experienced during that time. And I'll give you an example. I went to Wayne State, and one of the projects that an English teacher had for us is we were supposed to record speaking to our grandfather and our grandmother, and for them to describe an event in their life that happened. So my father's parents were the only ones alive at the time. So I went to my grandfather and I asked him, to talk to me about a time when he was in the war because he served in World War II. And so he was telling me about the conditions. And the thing that I remember the most was how he was telling me that they would go through the jungles, and they were looking for they were on the lookout not only for the enemy trying to shoot at them, but they were looking for tigers because tigers were a big deal at that time, where they were afraid that the tigers will come out and attack them because it's happened. So he saw that firsthand of somebody getting attacked by a tiger. So he was telling me about going through the jungles. He was telling me about how, the dress and how they wore and how they were sweaty. And he was just giving me all this information. And it was like a firsthand account of what they were experiencing when they were off at war. Then I talked to my grandmother, and she was alive and had a thriving business during the time of the riots in Detroit. So you can look that up. I'm not going to get into detail of it, but you can look that up. At that time, she was a seamstress, and that was her business. She was actually making clothes for some of the people on Motown, okay? So she was doing really well. So when the riots hit, they destroyed her store, and it caught on fire, and, she never opened back up from that. But she had a thriving business, and she was explaining and telling me the story of, her getting a call that say, you need to come down here, that, the store is on fire. Like the whole story she was giving me. And I have firsthand account through her eyes and through her experience on what happened. So it wasn't just me reading something online about what the Detroit riots were like and seeing those pictures. I had a firsthand account of somebody who was drastically affected by it. It's even a friend of mine who was a kid during the time of the riots, and he was telling me how he was on the streets at the time and how, he was, hiding and stuff to stay safe, and how worried his mother was when he finally got back. So you can get firsthand accounts of things that we read about in books. Okay. And I'm telling you, the value of that is priceless, to get their firsthand experience and have them tell you what happened to them. And let that be something that's somebody that's related to you. Oh, it just makes that much more special, that much more priceless. Okay. So reach out to some of the elders that you have. Let them tell you their story. They're happy to tell their story, to give that information to the following generations, whether it's in your bloodline or not. They're happy to talk to you. They're happy to tell you that experience. Talk to your parents. Ask them what it was like when they were a kid, okay? Because chances are, that was at least that bare minimum 20 years before you were ever born. So what was it like at that time? So when I hear stories like my mom tell me about things that happened that she experienced as a kid, whether It was the ride going down south when she was a child because racism was still really, really high. And I'm not saying it's not right now, but back then it was a time when you had to worry. Like we worry about police officers now, but we don't worry about them like we did back then. You know, you're liable to get snatched up out your car by Billy Bob that was driving down the street and saw you and, didn't like the way you looked at his car and they pull y'all all out the car and, somebody getting hung. So that was the time frame that we're talking about. So people were very scared. So she would tell me about how these trips down to the South, how they were, how her dad wouldn't stop. They would take food and they would drive straight through. But it's the experience and it's their feelings and their emotions and their perception on how it was that when they came out of it, when they were going through that. So talk to your parents, find out what they were like when they were kids. Look at pictures. I saw some pictures of my mom. I'm like, I can be on dress like that no more. My mama was always wearing my dad's old shirts and pants that's too big for her. But when I'm looking at these old pictures and how she had these short skirts on, showing her legs off and everything, I'm like, look at that. That's my mama. Look at her. Or even when I saw a picture of my grandmother, I'm like, I saw that picture of her. I'm like, that explains a lot. Because my grandmother was hot. So it was like, oh, okay, now I'm understanding. So when you get to talk to them and you find out about what they experienced, how they were in life, you look at their pictures of when they were kids and things, for us to think of our parents as children once, it's kind of mind blowing. But when you look at those pictures and you experience it, you get to see them in a different light. You get to see the human in them. So they're not just this position that they're in for you, like not just your mom, not just your dad or your grandmother, your grandfather. You can see them as a human being. You can see that there was so much more to them than what they are right now. Okay, because we calm down as we get older. We don't do all them things that we did when we was a kid or when we was younger. Even myself, okay? I'm 45 years old. I don't do some of the things now that I did when I was 17, 16, life is a little different. So you learn to calm down. So when you go back and you find out what these people did and look at the pictures, like I love looking at the pictures of the elders, like when they were kids or when they were in their 20s and stuff. Like, oh, look at you. Like I see pictures of my grandmother. I'm like, look at her. You can tell she wasn't about like she wasn't gonna take nothing. Like, no. So it's beautiful to look at, and they're happy to share that. They like telling those stories. Okay. Now the other thing is that you get out of it is it changes your perception. It changes your perception. When you can look at somebody in a different light and see the human in them and see what they go through, it makes you look at other people different as well. And so you kind of warm up to those other people because they make you think of the person that you talk to, your grandmother, mother, father, whatever. They make you think of those people. And so it changes your perception on how you look at stuff. Okay. So like when I see war movies, I think about especially anything on World War II. I think about my grandfather, like this is the kind of stuff that he experienced. Like he went through it. Like I know somebody who went through that, or if I'm looking at something where they're talking about the riots or you see the marches and stuff, it's like I know somebody who experienced that. I know somebody who went through that. So it really changes how you look at things and change your perspective. I remember I even worked in I did some volunteer work at a assisted living, a senior living thing. When I tell you that was an eye opener, if you ever work in a retirement or a nursing home, you gonna see like, okay, they may be old, but that don't mean nothing. That don't mean nothing. Like I love old people. I really do. They so honest. They don't care. Their filter is removed. Like it is, man, I'm telling y'all, old people and kids, they are the best. Old people, kids, and animals. That's my three things. Like the innocence in them, the filter being removed. Like they don't, like kids don't have no filter. Old folks lost their filter. Like it, man, I love it. I love it. It is so precious. So take the time to speak to somebody, whether, like I said, it doesn't have to be in your family. If you're one of those people who don't have anybody in your family, go to a nursing home. A lot of times there are people in them nursing homes that never get visits, that nobody ever comes to see. So go in there, find out who those people are, sit down and talk to them, spend some time with them, and learn what they have to teach you, okay? It can be sad, it can be depressing because of the health issues and things like that, but think about what you're providing to them. They're giving you something and you're giving them something. I did a video I don't remember when it was, but I did do a video on the lack of human touch. Okay, I'm trying to think of what it was called, but anyway. And when you don't have that interaction with people, you don't have that interaction with somebody to be able to sit down and talk, and outside of the caregivers or whatever, when you can't talk to anybody, you're actually deprived. You have that social deprivation, and it puts you down on an incline. So when you go and you talk to some of those elders that don't get visits from anybody, and you go spend that time with those people who really need somebody, you are actually extending their life. You're giving them endorphins, okay, them feel good emotions, because now they can be happy because they get to share that time with somebody. They get to interact with somebody socially, and it's somebody that's not old like they are. You know what I mean? And a lot of times they're depressed. Old people can be very depressed. And when I say old people, let me clarify on that, because my nephew told me I was old because I'm 45 years old. Okay, when I say old people, I'm talking about those people who are 70 and above. Okay, even some around 60, but at least 70 and above. Spend some time with them, talk to them, share with them. Okay, they need it just as much as you need it. All right, if not more. But anyway, so that's it for today. I hope you got something out of it. Again, if you did, please like, subscribe, and share. And check out the link below for Young Living. I love you, and I will talk to you tomorrow.